I'm Scott Al Miller. This is my life living in Leon, Nicaragua, and today I had a question from someone who was asking me to talk a little bit about the Haggle culture, or is there a Haggle culture here in Nicaragua? What kind of pricing strategies do people have to deal with, and how does that really affect you as an expat who may be living here? And I'm looking to get kind of better light. We're a little bit later in the day, so we're going to move the camera a little bit as I try to adjust. So I'm going to be talking about that today because, yes, Nicaragua is a Haggle country, as many of you have guessed or have experienced. This is something that could benefit you. We're kind of in the middle ground here where there is Haggle, but there is also non-Haggle culture going on as well. So we're going to dig into that right after the bump. You're likely familiar with people talking about gringo prices and how that affects you when traveling, especially through Latin America, and that's where the term comes from, since gringo is the term for foreigner in Spanish. So it's mostly in these countries that you experience this, hence the name. So how does that happen? Gringo pricing pretty much only happens when you can have haggling. If you're in a situation like the United States or Canada, where prices are predetermined and they really don't consider your individual factors, the prices are just listed, then you really don't have an opportunity for gringo pricing or whatever, because the prices are already known. If you're going to go on shopping on Amazon, the prices are already known. Now, we do have the problem in North America that they're now doing demand pricing or contextual pricing, where they're sensing things about you, whether it's through an AI or through marketing research or cookies or whatever, and giving you prices based on what they think you're willing to pay. And so Haggle culture is actually turning into the underlying current in North America. Now, whether there's going to be legislation at some point, unexpected, where they're going to start controlling prices and saying you can't give different prices to different people, because that is a potential underlying factor for discrimination, right? It targets people who are smarter or more savvy or can do more research, and they're able to press for lower prices, and people who feel bullied or pressured or simply don't have the resources to wait for things will pay higher prices in the same situation, not to get faster service, not to get better products, but just because they're not in a position to be able to know the prices as well, right? And so we've really long held value from an unofficial standpoint to not haggling in North America. And it does a lot to make the North American economy strong and has some big advantages on a large scale. But on an individual basis, any given transaction, haggling tends to favor the business, because they don't have to sell you if they're not going to make a good deal. And if they think you can get, you're not going to be able to resist, they'll just keep upping the price on you, right? So there's a lot of potential negatives that can come with this. So haggling is certainly something to consider on a completely different scale than we're talking about here, but it does bring a lot of negatives. And we know that, like, when you're dealing with a used car or whatever, and we have to haggle, or dealing with a house, a lot of times those prices become massively inflated, and you can end up losing your shirt because you bought a house for twice what it was actually worth. You didn't realize something was wrong, or you bought a car that doesn't actually work, and you paid what you thought was a good price for it, and then you find out it's not. Those things put you at great risk. Haggling carries a lot of risk, but it also gives businesses a leg up. So it's the natural state of things, right? And you can say, well, that person just bought this for $5, and you're going to make me pay $7? Like, because you will pay $7. No one's going to give you a better deal. So pay up, right? I like them more, so I gave them a discount, or whatever. Or I just don't like you, so I'm charging you more. The risk there is, right, that we don't want that happening based on gender or based on age or based on race. But of course, those things will always play a factor. You can't allow unfixed pricing without those things playing in one way or another, intentionally or unintentionally. And even if you're using AI algorithms, it will use those factors, whether intentionally or unintentionally, to do its haggling. So that is something, as someone who has witnessed airlines treat all their male and all their female customers dramatically differently during a sold-out flight, there's no question that businesses know that different genders alone react differently in situations where there's pricing involved, right? So it's easy for a computer to simply guess what the behavior is and charge some people more. And this is not something we generally want. So just something to think about, as haggling has a lot of negative connotations. And here in Latin America, of course, the concept of gringo pricing, that they look at you, believe that you're coming from a wealthier economy, that you probably are not as savvy, they're automatically going to work much harder to raise the prices on you. We often feel that this is unfair, but imagine how that would play out in a bigger economy. So here we do have a haggle culture, and there are places like you can go to La Colonia, you can go to La Curacao, big shopping situations, and you're probably going to pay a bit more, but you'll get fixed pricing. Everybody pays the same thing. It's the prices are right on the shelf, and you just pay that, right? So that's very straightforward. But a lot of the good deals here in Nicaragua are made by going to a market and shopping there, right? The central market that we showed a few weeks ago here in Leon, or going to the famous Mercado Oriental in Managua, or going to the big Messiah market, not the one that the tourists go to, the real one in Messiah. These are famous places that you can go, and that's where a lot of the big deals are made here in the country. You want to buy a lot of air conditioners, you want to buy tons of plastic plates, you want to get, you know, sheets for your hotel, for all the beds. You're going to go to these big markets where there's dedicated stores to each of these things, and none of them have listed prices. And so if you know really well what things are going to cost, if you do your research, you can get really good prices because you know what to pay and what to walk away from. But one, you have to be willing to walk away, and two, you have to be massively savvy on an individual product basis, and you have to be in a situation where the person is going to honestly negotiate with you on equal footing. That can be difficult, right? So a lot of people come to Nicaragua, come to anywhere in Latin America, and experience haggle culture in the everyday transactions. In North America, we really don't have that. You're not going to go buy, some bubble gum and haggle over the price. You're not going to buy some plastic plates at Walmart and haggle over the price. But here, to get the low prices, you actually are in many circumstances. And so it's not something that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. Of course, if you're buying a house or a car, yes, that could be the case. But for normal transactions, typically we're shopping at places where we don't have to deal with that too much. But famously, much of the shopping that you do here is buying products like produce at a little stand on the side of the road where there's no prices listed. So your ability to negotiate there, either you're going to just pay higher prices and let it go at that, or you're going to need to haggle to get those prices down, which comes with a lot of potential overhead, so you're likely to pay more than other people. So the more that you want to haggle, the more that's something that you just find entertaining. Like if you're on vacation, you're like, oh, this is a chance to do that, then you absolutely can. If it's something you want to avoid, well, we mostly have shopping opportunities where you can avoid it. You're not going to haggle at a restaurant or a hotel, so you don't have to worry about it there. But if you're going out for food, well, if you're going to do just regular street food, you're going to get in a barbecue on the street or whatever, they're not going to haggle over that. They're going to have set prices 99% of the time. It's really when you're going out to buy food or normal everyday home products that you're going to be looking at the normal interactions of people to potentially be haggling. So for a lot of tourists, you're not here for very long unless that's something you want to do, which absolutely, a lot of people just think it's a cool thing because they've never really done it in America, or Canada or whatever. So that's an opportunity for you. Sure, go enjoy. But if not, then simply go to a bigger box grocery stores or shopping centers, whatever, and you won't have to worry about it. So we fall very much into the middle. I spent some time in North Africa, and there haggling was much more common. You would spend a majority of your time shopping that way, whereas here it's really a lot more of the exception. It's still pretty common if you live here full time and you're doing lots of shopping and need to keep your prices down, so you're going to the big markets on a regular basis, then you'll do it quite a bit more often. And the first few times you'll spend way too much, but over time you'll get to know people, they'll get to know you, they'll realize you're part of the local community, and they'll want to win your business in most cases rather than throwing it away by trying to get a high price one time. Now, that's not 100% true. There are some people who simply will refuse to ever treat you as a normal customer, and you just need to walk away and move on. But there's always another place where you can buy things, or just about always. So that's part of that whole process, right? But in general, yeah, the question is this a haggle or barter economy? Yes, relatively so. But you're definitely not stuck with it most of the time. And for those of us who live here, I think it's pretty minor, right? And you will get used to it, and you'll have to deal with it a little bit. And in many cases, what people do, and this is one of the reasons why many of us do this, is if you end up hiring staff, if you, for example, have a maid or a housekeeper or a cook that works for you, or a security guard, you can send them out to go buy products for you, and they can handle that haggling. Maybe you won't get the absolute best price, but you'll probably get better than you would have gotten had you done it yourself. yourself, and it's not something that you need to do in many cases. So it's all about figuring out a reality of how is it going to apply to you. I've never really known any expats who are really frustrated by it. An individual transaction here or there. Wow, I went to buy some papaya and they charged me way too much for the papaya, and I knew what the price would be and they wouldn't give it to me, and I didn't feel like going on somewhere else. Well, if you paid it, they got what they wanted out of the transaction, and they're not thinking very far ahead. And this is a thing you will find in Nicaragua, and probably lots of places in the region. Americans and Canadians have a tendency to think very strongly about, ooh, this is a potential future customer. I want them to come back and make money over time. Nicaraguans are much more likely, for a lot of reasons, to be completely focused on the momentary transaction and would be absolutely willing to burn the possibility of a long-term customer in order to make 10%, 20% more on this customer transaction right this moment. Those who are willing to think more broadly and financially tend to do really, really well here. There's not the same business mentality and training, financial acumen that we're used to in businesses other places. It's much easier to survive here on a business that isn't doing that, but you may not succeed, but you'll be able to survive. So it's all about finding that balance and understanding how it's playing out. So hopefully that answers the question there. If you find it entertaining, you'll be able to do it. If you find it frustrating, you could be able to avoid it. We are kind of in a Haggle region. Barter, there's very little of, can be done, of course. People do use things like Facebook Marketplace. You can always be like, hey, you've got a sofa, I've got a dining room table, we could swap them. You're able to do that. We don't see people doing that very often. As an expat or a foreigner living here, you're going to rarely want to do that. But as far as haggling over price, definitely if you're buying stuff used or in the markets, you will haggle over price. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. As always, get in those comments and say hello. Check out the show notes and send in a video of yourself to ask a question. And as always, hit that thumbs up, and I will see all of you tomorrow.